And now an hour of the only acceptable way to answer nosy questions like, where is Starr Park? Where is Starr Park? Where?
That's actually a really good question. Where exactly is Starr Park? Because while it seems like it should be a pretty straightforward answer, the truth has been shrouded in mystery for a very long time, and because of that, we haven't been able to pinpoint its exact location. There are some huge pieces of evidence for certain areas, but can they be trusted? Honestly, it seems like a bad business model in my opinion. How can people buy tickets to the park if they don't know where to find it? Does Starr Park just show up to your house in the middle of the night and drag you to the happiest place on earth? Where am I even supposed to buy tickets? I can't find any on eBay. Well, if Starr Corp doesn't want you to talk about something, then you probably should. So let's get started, shall we? I'm a Turnip. Today we're going to get to the bottom of this and below, and welcome to Sub-Zero. Now, while it would be possible to overanalyze all the hints and make a conclusion as to where Starr Park is located, I suppose the easiest way to find the answer is cheating, because we can actually take a look behind the curtain and get technical with our answer. As in one interview with the creators of the investor video, we're told the general location of where the investor video was filmed.
You know, this was a 5-day shoot in Australia.
This, along with the fact that the picture of green gems on StarPark.biz contains several coins from Australia as a size reference, implies that those items are or were at one point located within the country. However, there are more than a few problems with that. For one, the main language in Australia is not Japanese, which is what 95% of the dialogue spoken within the investor video happens to be. And second, trying to use the meta answer is always bad. Breaking the fourth wall can be good for a one-time joke, but it also introduces a plethora of problems. So while it's true that the webmaster could be located within the land of terrifying wildlife, in reality it's probably not the case for the park we see in the film. Now, it's true that Corbin and the person who replaces him both speak Japanese, although he does speak English on a few occasions as well. This, along with many of the workers being Japanese, leads to the logical conclusion that this Starr Park is located within Japan, and I think that's true, but notice how I said this Starr Park? And I say this because while most of the workers are Japanese, the Starr Park dancers at the beginning are suspiciously singing in English. Now, this is important because if it originated in Japan, it would be Japanese with English subtitles, just like the rest of the video, but for some reason, it's not. Looking at the Starr Park website, we can see the record is called an original, and upon clicking the MP3 hyperlink, it will play the exact version we hear during the intro sequence, meaning that there is no chance that the song was adapted to English from Japanese. So what does all this mean? Well, Gamba, a well-known theorist in the community and the one to receive the Starr Park laptop, posted one theory by drawing a parallel to another certain amusement park. That's right, Disney. Looking at Starr's real-world equivalent, Disneyland has several parks scattered all across the world. Disneyland Paris, Shanghai, California, and of course Disneyland Tokyo, among others. Starr Park appears to be the same in that it could have several parks around the world. This would explain the multiple languages found in their merchandise, a Russian pin, the Japanese logo on headphones, English lunchboxes, and more. The investor video is likely showcasing one of many. Of course, it's also worth noting that those parks may not be in the same world, and could exist throughout multiple dimensions, because it's widely accepted that Starr Park is a transdimensional power, with the ability to manipulate black holes and control time to some extent. After all, we do hear Ranter reference this multiple times in WKBRL.
You gotta take your interdimensional snippers and cut that fence and slide in underneath. Interdimensional theme parks. Do they exist? Obviously.
And all of that isn't even taking into account the existence of Brawl Stars, which is the alleged simulation version of Starr Park, the place where the souls of victims are puppeted around to fight each other in a perpetual purgatory. So where is Starr Park? The answer is everywhere, and likely in multiple places throughout multiple universes. But let's be honest, that's a pretty simple answer, so let's get a little bit more specific. It's a topic of interest that the main motive of the Hub season is location. We can see that everywhere with knockdown vending machines containing maps as told to us by the Morse code on the machine, and as it's explained to us in Brawl Talk.
We are going to the Starr Park Hub, where we can get directions to all the other parts of the park.
And because of that, we have a heaping pile of new information considering Starr Park's layout. So instead of asking ourselves where is Starr Park, why not ask ourselves where are the environments within the park? And I know that this seems like it would be a closed case, shut and done, mostly due to the amount of times it's been covered. Even before we knew about Starr Park, Kairos Time created several versions of the map, which were sadly rejected because we thought we had a canon version of Starr Park instead, the investor video. We were shown an aerial view of the entire park and several angles of the concept diorama as well, and one would think that this would be the end of it, but nope, because of a little thing called inconsistencies. Now, let's start off by establishing that the Starr Park Hub is the most accurate information available. It's the most recent information, and its entire point is to guide people from one environment to another. It gives us a key framework to work with and is some solid ground to stand on. So, more or less, let's consider this the canon arrangement. We can see that Haunted Haven, which contains Mortis Mortuary, is on the right side relative to the main gate. But wait, in the investor video, we can see it's actually on the left. And once again, with Retropolis, we can see see it's on the right in the investor video, but in the hub, it's on the left. Now, you could argue that this isn't the main gate and it's actually backwards, but that doesn't work either, because then that changes the position of Frontier World, meaning it would no longer be on the left. Now, thankfully, as stated previously, this only makes sense because Brawl Stars Starr Park and the investor video Starr Park are two separate areas, with Brawl Stars likely being a simulation. So while it's strange that the hub isn't based on the same layout we see here, we can firmly state that these two are separate entities. So then, I suppose there's only one thing left to do. Try and draw a new map so that we can get a vague understanding of the new layout. So, for your viewing pleasure, I have gone through every single community post on Brawl Stars' Facebook page in the history of its existence, as well as every animation posted to the main YouTube channel, scouring for any instance of two environments being right next to each other. So, without further ado, here's my attempt at tracking down Starr Park. Let's start off with the signs. These are the easiest pieces because they're essentially handed to us on a silver platter. Frontier World contains all of the Western environments, that is Showdown, Old Western, the Golden Arm Gang Star Bank, and Robo Factory. Below that, we have Tomorrow World and Retropolis, containing the Star Forces environment, and of course Retropolis. Finally, we have Mystic Mountain, and this one's probably the hardest out of the legible signs. We can say for near certain that it contains Tara's Bazaar for two reasons. Number one, this symbol is the trademark of Tara herself. It's plastered all around the environment as well as Tara's model. The second reason is that Tara's description was intentionally changed from a basic paragraph about her attack and super to the specific mentioning of her as a quote-unquote mystic, which is a person seeking to obtain a sort of knowledge about spiritual enlightenment. However, the more difficult issue is the second environment, that being the Snow Tell. Now, originally I was going to say that this was the same mountain for several reasons. First off, we're told that it's a snowy mountain.
From the deep, dark depths of the gem mine to the snowy peaks of Mystic Mountain.
Which makes sense as we can see the white, snow-covered cap of the mountain on the sign itself. And while combining an arid desert with a snowy mountain feels very out of place, since those two are the exact opposite climates, it would make sense for the Snow Tell to be on top, because Mr. P is heavily connected to the lore and has been implied in the past to be one of the main villains. And with Science's monologue saying,
"We can all agree that the view from the top of the mountain is clear, unimpeded, true. But whom among us has made it to the summit? I have not. Have you? No. We all stand on the side of the mountain, and we from where we stand the zenith is not near."
It seems fitting that Mr. P, one of the managers of Starr Park, would be at the peak of the mountain, seeing everything. And out of all the mountains that are shown throughout the lore that aren't just background decoration, like the volcano in the investor video, or even Gem Mountain, the Snow Tell is the only one with snow on it. Plus, we're shown in this community post that Tara's Bazaar is just a skip away from the Snow Tell, but even despite all that evidence, we're just straight up shown in the Brawl Days animation that it's behind the gift shop. So as much as it pains me to put it over here, it's kind of hard to debunk something that's staring you straight in the face. Continuing on the right side, we have Fairytale Kingdom, which contains the castle courtyard, and floating far above it is Candyland, which we know because Star Corp has multiple trams wired up into the sky. We can also say that the gift shop is up next, because we see Candyland being foreshadowed in the holiday animation and this community post, and leaving only Haunted Haven and Brawlywood, we can place them here and here, because the Brawl Talk Hub animation shows Brawlywood being on the left when facing towards it. I'm also going to say that the ghost station is located somewhere within Haunted Haven because 1, it's spooky, and 2, it's called Haunted Haven, meaning that there are ghosts inhabiting it. Plus, we can see in this community post that the outside of the ghost station has a similar look and theme to Mortis Mortuary. And so, for the most part, that's all the hub hands to us, except, of course, the broken signs. Now, because Starr Park is a defunct park, and because there's been a lot of brawling, many of the signs have been knocked down, and for the most part, I think a lot of these don't actually have corresponding locations to them yet. If you look at the hub, you'll see that these two signs actually have two different shapes, depending on whether you're looking at the map banner or at their in-game location, one of them being a sort of shield, and the other being whatever this is. So it's my assumption that these either haven't been 100% decided upon yet, are hinting at environments not yet in the game, or are vague enough that they could be several themes that we literally can't decipher without the text. However, one of these is not the case, that being this weirdly shaped symbol, which is obviously some sort of liquid. Now, I could see it being one of two things, either A, the outline of a water splash, or B, a splat of Onus's paint. Now, thankfully, these two options are in reality one option, since Deep Sea Brawl is in the water park area with all the others. And thankfully, we actually have a perfect map leading us to the exact location of Deep Sea Brawl, along with a couple bonuses. At the bottom left is Velocirapids, in the center is the the underwater circus, and to the right is Daryl's ship. It's also worth noting that Brawl Ball Island and the jungle environment are somewhere around here too, as we can see palm trees on the beaches. We're also close to Frontierland judging by the cow skulls and cacti, just as the signs in the hub tell us. Plus, in addition to the beaches, we also have a few stray pine trees, which is part of the forest that we can see in multiple other environments, such as the biodome, which we can see is completely surrounded by the lot after Eve is able to make her escape. Now, trying to locate Super City is a little bit more difficult, since we are never shown any environments next to it, besides the gem mine, which is under the city and likely stretches to Frontier World, meaning it can't be cross-referenced with any other locations. However, there is one geographic feature that is always shown with it: the ocean. Here in its map banner, at the bottom of the map, in the Mecha Mayhem cartoons, and in the Season 2 animation, where Max meets Surge at the shoreline. Knowing that Retropolis is down here, and Old Town is right below Retropolis as we see in both animation and in-game, it seems like all the residential areas are clumped together in order of increasing sophistication. To elaborate, we have Old Town, which is based around 19th century settlements at the bottom, and then we have Retropolis, which is above that, being based on diners from the 1940s. Then we get to a more modern era with Super City, and finally the arcade environment at the top, which seems to be mixed with several futuristic concepts from Cyber City. And it's worth noting that this also contains the new basketball environment, as the same neon signs appear here as they do in the Starcade. And I think this also makes sense due to it being near Tomorrowland, and we can see that the Starcade is combined with Super City in the investor video, so they have been paired together before, which increases the likelihood that these two are heavily connected. And then there's also the issue of the stunt show, which has two possible locations. Number one is in the arcade, which we know is where the Year of the Tiger takes place, as they're all trapped within an arcade cabinet. And it could be a similar case for the stunt show, since we can see that the goal in Brawl Ball is covered by these guards, which are only found on pinball machines. And that's not even mentioning the scoreboard and the trickshot obstacles, which are only found in this specific environment. Plus, we have this community post showing us a Bonnie-themed pinball machine. The only other possibility is somewhere around Super City, as twice in the cinematic universe we can see skyscrapers in the background, which means we're likely near a residential area. This is also supported by the proximity of Old Town being close by in at least one community post. Now, I already said that it's likely Haunted Haven contains Ghost Station, the Swamp Tunnel of Love, and of course Mortis Mortuary, but I also think that there's one more location nearby, the Junker Trio, which may seem out of place, and I agree because, well, it is. However, I'm not saying that it's part of the attraction. We can't see any amusement park rides that are still active, only the salvaged remnants that are likely broken down and recycled, so this area is probably off limits to any guest. So, while it's not a part of Haunted Haven, I believe that the scrapyard is at least very close by. As we can see, it has the exact same geographic features. The ground is a dark gray, the skies are overcast with no sunlight in sight, and the grass is the same exact shade of green as Mortis Mortuary, and all likely due to the toxic sludge polluting the water. Unfortunately, while the left side of Starr Park is filled to the brim with attractions, the right side seems to be rather underwhelming in terms of placement, and the only other location that can definitively be placed that isn't obscured by a blank sign or given to us straight is the bandstand environment. As we can see, it's right to the right of the gift shop environment, but that's a bit weird, isn't it? Now, the intuitive place to put the bandstand would be in Frontier World, and the same applies to Old Town. These two are remnants from when the game was being built around the Wild West, and while Old Town fits next to Retropolis, why is bandstand so far away from its logical placement? And this is where things start getting complex. Unfortunately, because it's Starr Park, it's never quite as simple as you want it to be. Take a look at the Mortis Mortuary animation, which had one of the first foreshadowings of a future edition, Tar's Bazaar. It's obviously close by, after all you can see it in the distance, but for some reason on the map, it's nowhere close to it. But that can't be. One of the first hints that all these different worlds are connected in one place, and when you put all the puzzle pieces together, it makes it look like a consistency error. Well, the good news is that there are a few explanations, such as Theory 1, they retconned it. It's boring, yes, but it would also be a solemn truth. It's unlikely that they had all the schematics laid out in a neat map from the very beginning, and there weren't nearly as many environments back then. And it's not like lore inconsistencies haven't happened before, such as Spike's quote-unquote voice for an ad around beta. Mix all this together, and it seems like they'd want to establish a solid footing moving forward. Theory 2, the park shifts. This is really just speculation, but it's also a possibility. Over time, the park gets damaged, whether via standard brawling, wearing out the buildings, or the damage that speed intentionally causes, and because of this, the areas end up having to be rebuilt, or over time, different rides get phased out, just like environments get implemented and removed from the game to save space. Not to mention, we also have had multiple instances of brawlers getting lost, first with Gus at the Ghost Station, and second with RT helping brawlers get around, which seems suspicious since for most brawlers, this is their home, and they should know their way around. This seems a little less likely due to the lack of evidence, which leads to the final option. Theory 3, the loop. This is probably my personal favorite, because it doesn't just disregard it all as inconsistency. Take a moment to think about how real-world maps work. Let's say you live in Alaska, all the way over here, and you suddenly receive an email from the Prince of Australia saying he will pay you handsomely if you come visit him. But wait, you don't fly all the way across America, Europe, and Asia to get there because the map isn't completely accurate to how it exists in the real world. The world isn't flat. Just because the map doesn't show the connection to one side of the Pacific to the other doesn't mean it's not there. In a similar way, what if Starr Park loops back onto itself? We can see Mortis Mortuary from here because if you go far enough left, you end up in Tara's Bazaar. Now, I should say I don't think Starr Park takes up an entire planet. I personally think it's way too small to do that, but if Brawl Stars is a simulation, it's not going to follow the standard laws of space-time and geography. It would be more like a Pac-Man map, where you go in one end and come out the other. After all, how would you stop people from going out of bounds and walking straight out the entrance gate? You want to remove any possible suspicion about what you're doing, so you remove the ability to leave the park entirely, and if anyone asks, you can always remind people that it's the place you'll never want to leave. And by putting the last piece into place, that completes the map. It's by no means canon and will probably be rendered inaccurate over time as further developments to the game are made, but it's something to work with in the meantime. And out of everything that might change, these signs here are definitely a topic of interest, as it's likely we'll get to see more environments added in the future, though we'll have to see if they fix the signs as new content is updated, or if they'll just leave them as is. It wouldn't be the first time they've tweaked an environment, such as removing the WKBRL transmitter, or adding this camera to the top of the showdown environment. Though in any case, thank you all for making it this far, and if you did like the video and you're new here, feel free to press all the buttons below. You know the ones. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, make sure to have a day as bright as the stars.